Consider the profound moment when an individual's meticulously constructed reality is irrevocably shattered, not by a powerful adversary, but by the one they deemed least consequential. This is the essence of the narrative we examine today, a story that unfolds within the opulent, echoing lobby of a five-star hotel where power and privilege are confronted by memory and moral reckoning. The scene is set by a seemingly simple request from a child, a blind girl whose presence is an anomaly in that curated space of wealth and influence. Her small voice, trembling yet persistent, carries a weight that will ultimately dismantle a fortress of lies built over 3 decades. This encounter transcends a mere personal confrontation. It serves as a powerful allegory for the inescapability of truth and the long shadow cast by choices rooted in denial and exploitation. The initial dynamic is one of stark contrast. The businesswoman, a figure of immense authority and polished refinement, embodies a success narrative built upon a foundation of deliberate forgetting. Her disdain for the interruption is palpable, a reflex of someone accustomed to controlling her environment and the people within it. The child, however, represents everything this persona has sought to erase: a connection to a past of hardship, a reminder of marginalized identities, and a vulnerability that has no place in the boardroom. The girl's visual impairment is particularly symbolic. It forces a confrontation with the idea that true sight is not merely physical, but moral and emotional. The woman sees only an inconvenient child, while the child, in her perceived limitation, perceives the fundamental cracks in the woman's carefully crafted armor. The catalyst for the unraveling is not a threat of violence or a complex legal maneuver, but a name. The name of a woman from the past, a secret keeper whose memory holds the power to unmake a life's work. This revelation shifts the balance of power instantly. The businesswoman's arrogance evaporates, replaced by a visceral fear that exposes the fragility of her position. The past, which she believed was securely buried, is resurrected with terrifying clarity. We learn of a formative trauma, an act of self-preservation from her youth, that was witnessed and critically concealed by an act of profound compassion. The keeper of this secret, the grandmother of the child now standing in the lobby, had chosen to protect a frightened teenager, motivated by a belief in justice and the hope that the saved individual would, upon gaining power, extend that same protection to others. This hoped-for redemption never materialized. Instead, the path to success was paved with the very exploitation the benefactor sought to prevent. The narrative meticulously details the consequences of this betrayal. Families displaced by predatory financial practices, employees discarded for the sake of profit margins, and a systemic pattern of abuse that mirrored the injustices once suffered. The child, far from being a passive messenger, is revealed as a sophisticated agent of accountability. Her blindness becomes a metaphor for her unwavering focus on the essential truth, unswayed by the superficial trappings of power. She is not alone. Her actions are supported by a network of justice, a civil rights lawyer who represents the collective grievances of those wronged. This demonstrates that the confrontation is not a singular act of vengeance, but the culmination of organized, principled resistance. The tension escalates with the introduction of a digital recorder and the arrival of the press, turning a private reckoning into a public spectacle. The businesswoman is cornered, not by force, but by the inexorable logic of consequence. Her every attempt to reassert control through threats, appeals to privacy, or outright denial only tightens the trap. The choice presented to her is stark yet profound. She can voluntarily embrace the truth of her identity and actions, or she can have that truth exposed for her. It is an offer of agency in the face of certain ruin, a chance to reclaim a fragment of integrity by acknowledging the person she once was and the person she became. The conclusion of the confrontation is not a victory of destruction, but one of transformation. The businesswoman's empire collapses under the weight of its own deceit, its assets repurposed as restitution for the communities it harmed. The true irony is that the woman is ultimately returned to the very circumstances she sought to escape, working as a cleaner, thus completing a circular narrative of poetic justice. The true victory, however, lies in the constructive outcome. The pain and exploitation are not merely avenged, they are channeled into building a community center, a space for education and opportunity. The courage of the child and the memory of her grandmother fulfilled the original act of compassion by forcing a reckoning that, in its devastation, creates something new and positive. This story ultimately argues that while truth can be delayed and justice can be perverted, they possess a relentless momentum. The most formidable power structures can be dismantled by the most unexpected figures when they are armed with integrity, strategic purpose, and the unwavering conviction that the past always has a claim on the present.